What's going on, YouTube? Today we're going to be installing a cargo camera on this 2006 GMC Sierra 2500 LBZ Duramax. Make and model doesn't necessarily matter. I already have an aftermarket head unit in here. This is a double DIN style with a backup camera that I've already installed. And what we're going to do today is we're going to install this camera. This is a Tikka brand from Amazon. This is the mounting style here. It can either be downward like this, or mounted like this, and we'll mess with that once we get into the back and start looking at stuff. But we're going to use a toggle switch here, a 2-position toggle switch, and I'll put the link for that as well in the description, to where we can select rear cameras. So typically my plan is just to leave it on the regular backup camera that's above the hitch, and then when I want the cargo camera, then I can switch it over to that. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to take this apart. This dash just pops off here. Once we get behind that, then there's going to be 2 screws to take this dash out, or this head unit out, and then we're going to attach into that, and everything should be RCA cable, and we'll connect into that going into this switch. We're going to double check to make sure that this camera works from the factory. Amazon, you never know. These cheaper ones, I think this was 50 bucks. We'll make sure that that works before we get too in depth. And then we're also going to make sure that, and I don't think that we're going to be able to see our gooseneck ball from that third brake light. Vision's linear, so that's telling me right there that you're not going to be able to see that. So what we're going to do is we're going to probably install it right here off of our toolbox to be able to point down to see the gooseneck ball, because that's the entire point of all this, is to be able to see. So we'll get into that here in a minute. Okay, on my specific truck here, you gotta put your key in, put it to the run position, shift all the way down, and then these just pop off. Also make sure your steering wheel is all the way down. This is going to come off. Set that aside. Turn your key off, take it out so you don't have to listen to that 50 different times. Then this particular one is just 2 screws holding that in. Alright, then this whole thing's going to come out. Okay, and you can put something underneath this here to where you're not relying on the wires to hold it, but it's okay for right now. So currently we have a camera that's hooked up to the back that is connected into the reverse lights to where it picks up power, 12-volt power, when the reverse camera light is hooked up, and that comes all the way up here, and then that comes into this RCA cable right here. So we are going to pull this out, we're going to strip that back, strip everything else back, and start wiring stuff in. Before we do any of that stuff though, I'm going to hook up this camera that we just purchased and make sure that it actually works before we start getting into all this crap here. Alright, so we have our new camera wired in to the same wire that's going all the way back to the back of the car, connected to the reverse brake lights, and then also plugged into the input. So the camera's sitting right there. Make sure that it comes up on our dash, and make sure that this camera's actually good before we start getting too crazy with everything. So turn it to run, reverse. Alright, and there is our camera. So probably can't see that too well with the reflection of the light in here, but everything is up and working. It's actually pretty decent quality. So we'll go ahead and start wiring stuff up. We're going to check to see what our angle is going to be to make sure that we can see our gooseneck hitch, and this would apply if you have a fifth wheel or whatever else as well. If you don't have a truck toolbox in it, then you could wire it straight into, drill a hole through your plastic for your third brake light and hook it into that. However, because of the angle that we need, I can't do that today, but that would be an option as well. Everything else would be the same. All right, so what we did now is I got the camera running back just through the truck here, just roughly wired, just to see if I like the position where the camera is at. So put it in reverse, and then the camera should be upside down. Yep. So right now it's upside down. If we look at the instructions here that came with the camera, if I cut the purple loop in that, then that should switch that over. So we'll go do that. All right, next thing we're going to do, now we're in the back of the truck, is we're going to make sure that where we're mounting it is going to clear the lid here, and then also the mechanism underneath that goes over to our locks. So that goes over top, so should be okay right in here. We're going to measure across to make sure we're dead center. Make sure. But again, the reason that we're putting it here is because line of sight from the third brake light down, you're not going to be able to see that. In order to be able to see that, we would have to be all the way out here. Okay, so something to keep in mind with this. All we'll do is just mount this, run the wire inside, over, then drop it down, and then come up, drop it down between the cab, and then run it up through the firewall where our other one already goes. So make a couple measurements, we'll drill a hole and keep going. And then the way that this works is this piece goes all the way through, so we don't need to worry about a grommet or anything there, because that's going to go far enough past. We'll be okay with that. We'll just try not to damage the wire as we push through. And again, this specific camera came with different cords that you could cut in order to change it from forward facing, rear facing, having the lines on the side, and then also mirroring image. So that's what that'll look like there. Get the locking nut and everything installed on that, and then we'll start running our wire. Alright, our camera's installed here. I ran it up underneath this lip, all the way down, dropped in here, under, drop down there, between the cab and the bed, under, zip tied all the way down through, came up, and then went through the firewall right here. I'll get you a better picture right there. Went through the firewall, came down, and on the Chevy and GMCs, it's better to remove this fuse box that's right here to be able to get access to up inside here. So next, what we're going to do is run our line up inside, hidden in here, and then we'll bring it up, and then we'll start looking at where to mount our switch. Okay, so for this you're going to need small butt connectors, and then also small flat connectors here. These wires that are inside of your RCA cable, there should be 3 of them. Right here's one that we've stripped back. You're going to have 3 wires inside, and these are probably somewhere around 22 to 28 gauge wire. And you'll have, where I can get this focused, should have a red, yellow, and then a bare that's going to be your ground. So what we're going to do is, I've jumped this here extended this cord. This is my original cord that came off of my backup camera that I had installed previously, and then I just used one of these couplers here, extended that, and then we've spliced in. What you're going to do is on your switch, your yellow cord is going to be the only one that's really going into this switch. So on our diagram here, we don't necessarily need to worry about our ground. That's not a problem. Accessory 1 is going to be one of your backup cameras. So what we're going to do is use a connector to go from our wire for the switch that came with that to the yellow wire on one of our RCA cables going to one of our camera. This is going to be the yellow that's going to go to the actual head unit, and then a yellow that's going to our secondary camera. So here we have all 3 of the wires coming in. So we've got 2 that are going to a camera, and then 1 is going to go to our head unit, and then that's what is going to be our switch. So I didn't have super small wire connectors. To what you're going to do is you're going to put all of the red wires together, and that's going to be the 12-volt power itself, and then all the grounds together. And I didn't have anything small enough to do that, so all I did was I just took one of our butt connectors here and then cut it in half, and then that gives you an easy way to put all those wires in there together, and then you can just crimp the end of that instead of using like a wire tie or something, or a wire nut. So the only thing that's going to go onto the actual switch are these 3 cords here. So you're going to have 2 that are going to come from your camera, and again that's your wire, your yellow wires, and then 1, I know this looks like a hot mess right now, and then 1's going to go here, to where that way you're selecting which input is going to your camera. Now the red wires that have come off out of this connector here, you're going to put all those together to where they're feeding off. Now one of my lines here runs all the way back to the light switch there for the rear brake, for the rear the backup lights, so that when those are turned on, then that engages the camera unit here. That's how most of these are designed, so where when that picks up that 12-volt power from the backup lights, then that turns the camera on. Now what you could do with this style of a switch right here is you could leave that to where it just ran off of any power, and you could actually leave that camera on then when you were just driving down the road, and you can turn that camera on. You could do that. I don't want that function. I want to just be able to leave it on one side, and then that'll be my normal camera. So when I back up, that'll be my regular camera, and then when I want to, I can switch it over to this other side, and then that would be my cargo camera. So we're going to go ahead and put these in. And again, so for this here, the 2 yellows are each going to go to one of my cameras, and then the red one is going to go to my yellow line here that's going to the head unit. I've already tested this. Everything works without this ground. It's going to be a lot of wiring right here, so I'm probably not going to mess with this. Everything else is grounded already, so I'll probably just take this off because we're dealing with limited space. One other thing I wanted to say before we start putting this back together is that the flat connector on these cords off of your 7-pin switch that you buy, if you buy these the female ends to go onto these flat connectors for the small 18 to 20 gauge or 18 to 22 gauge wire or smaller, you're likely going to have to trim the sides of these male ends that come with your switch. So just take a pair of diagonals or just the edges on your strippers here and just cut those down to the size to where your pieces will match up. Alright, so everything's installed now. Here's my toggle switch. Okay. I don't know that I would put it down here. There's a lot more plastic behind this that you're gonna have to cut through. If you're looking at a truck similar to mine, there wasn't much right here, and it was easy access for the wires to go behind this piece right over here. We're in the garage still. It's not going to be the best picture quality here, but we'll show you what we got going on. So I'm in reverse. This should turn on. So right now I'm in the middle. It says no signal. switch it over to one side. There's my backup camera with my gooseneck ball. Okay. In the middle it says no signal. Again, like I said, you could change that to where that was just running off straight 12 volts off of an accessory in the back, and you're not off of your reverse camera or your reverse lights. To the left, and then there's my regular backup camera with my hitch. Now, one thing I did notice is that it doesn't like it when you switch over real quick. So, gooseneck, regular camera. Hopefully this video has helped somebody out there figure out what they want to do, install this camera, and keep the truck that they got instead of spending 70 grand on a new one. So thanks, remember to like and subscribe.